what is the job of a film director for studio films versus a film director for independent films? And is there even a difference? If you're starting out in your career or you're just curious about what the heck a film director actually does, then stick around because we're going to unpack that. A film director on an independent film is not all that different than one on a studio film, except the independent is probably required to wear more hats. But what is the job of a film director? Well, it hasn't really changed for the past 100 years or so, but technology has, and that kind of changes things. Stay to the end because I'll tell you the one very key element that all successful directors incorporate to some degree, and it makes them stand out from the rest of the crowd. So if you've been on my channel at all, you may notice that I like to make lists. So let's make a list and break this whole thing down. But before we begin, let me introduce myself to those of you who are new. I'm Jared, I'm a filmmaker, and it's my passion to help you make better movies on a micro budget. So do the things. And let's roll this. One of the easiest ways to figure out what a film director does is to go to the DGA website. That's the Directors Guild of America. And they have negotiated deals with studios of what the job description is and pay rates and all of that stuff for film directors that are in the guild. Their document for a basic agreement was created in 2017. At least the most recent one is at the time of this recording. It's 264 pages long. 210 studio/production companies agreed to these terms. If you want to go through all 264 pages of that document and analyze and interpret all the legal jargon, go right ahead. This video, we're just going to do a broad broad strokes. We're going to make a broad stroke so you can kind of get a quick understanding of what the film director does. Let's break this down. I'm going to create this in two lists because there's some similarities and a few things that are different. So our first column is the film director for a studio picture, and our second column is the film director for the independent picture. Some things that you definitely need to know. You need to know story. You need to understand your characters, be able to analyze them. You need to be able to develop a creative vision. You also need to understand scene blocking and be able to block the scenes, placement of actors, props, and camera movements. You need to create your shot list. Oftentimes you work with a DP on this, and the shot lists is your list of all of the shots you want for your movie. Do you want a close-up? Do you want a wide shot? Do you want a dolly shot, a crane shot, overhead, low angle, high angle, push in on a face, all of these different things. These all you figure out in your shot list. You also need to be able to direct actors. This is the fun part. If you look at the whole grand scheme of making a movie, your time on set is probably like 5 or 10% of the entire process. And that might be generous. So understanding how to direct actors is going to allow you to get the performances you want in the crunched, abbreviated time that you have to do this. So a book I recommend is Directing Actors by Judith Weston. I've linked it below, and I created my own cheat sheet that helps me get through this even faster, helps speed up my communication process between me and the actors and get the direction that I'm hoping to get, all based off of the stuff that you can learn in Directing Actors book by Judith Weston. So grab a copy of that, and you can grab a copy of my cheat sheet linked below. You might not be the editor, but you probably will be working with the editor to get an idea of what creative vision that you had when you were shooting the movie. So be ready to sit with an editor and assemble the project. Next, once your project is done and it's out there for everybody, you probably are going to be involved with the press or marketing, Q&As at screenings, being interviewed for podcasts or other people's YouTube channels, or writing up an article for a magazine or another blog post, all of that stuff. Being the face of the movie or being willing to get out there to promote it is essential for both the studio film and the independent film. Like, how often do you see interviews with all the Marvel actors or the directors? All of that is very important with the promotion of your film. Now, this is where the roads divide. These next segments are very important for any film, but they're more likely to be required if you're working on an independent film due to lack of funds. A big budget movie or a studio film, there's a good chance that everyone working there is in the union. It's a union shoot. So you have to follow the union guidelines, which determines whether you're allowed to do something or not. And that's a huge element. Sometimes directors or directors of photography are not allowed to touch the cameras, or at least it was that way, unless they're in the camera guild or the cameras operators union. To do all of this stuff protects the employees that are working in there and also prevents them from doing other things, even if they enjoy it. So on the studio film, if you want to be these things, you may have to join another guild in order to take the job. So let's break it down. Some additional add-ons that we've got in the independent realm. You can write your movie. Most likely this is going to happen because one of the ways that all of these independent films get made is they write it and then they shop it around so that they can direct it. Not always the case, but it is oftentimes a scenario that you deal with. You likely are also going to be a producer. Smaller size productions require you to come up with more creative solutions, pulling in favors or working out contract deals or just doing logistical things just to get your movie made. So expect to become a producer. Another thing that is not fun by any means, and if it is fun, please contact me. I'd love to work with you, but that's raising funds. This is one part that makes it difficult because you have your vision, you're trying to raise money, but in that you have to flip your business mindset on. Is your movie going to make money? Is it going to turn a profit? Do you have a budget that's too high? Do you have talent that's attached that will bring in the draw so that your product will be more valuable? All of these little things that you'll have to do as a independent film director, likely becoming a producer and fundraiser. You have to sit with an editor, but on the independent film, and sometimes on the big ones, you are also editing the movie. You're cutting all of the stuff in the software, and that is just an added burden because you can't do anything else. That's your job for however long. And to also piggyback off of your PR marketing that you have to do, you probably are going to be the head of marketing for your project. You will become the ad agency that's promoting your film, unless you've got money to hire somebody. You're likely writing press articles. You are doing all of the promotion stuff, social media, trailers. You're doing appearances, Q&A screenings, anything you can think of that markets your movie. When you're in control of that, you've got to do it. And then if you decide that you are going to sell it to a distributor, now as a producer and a fundraiser, you are also negotiating your contract. Unless you bring in a lawyer that you can pay to do that, there's a good chance you're going to be reading through all of your contracts, trying to analyze and interpret things, find out if a deal is worth going for or not, all of that stuff. That's another thing you likely will be doing as an independent film director. This for sure is just touching the surface, and we'll go into details in future videos on specifics of all of this. But I just wanted to give you an idea of just a broad stroke of all of the things that a director does. One reason it is so hard for people to understand what the film director actually does and why they get all the recognition or the bad press if the movie's bad is because they do so much. They cast the creative vision and they also set the mood for how people are going to respond and act on set. And that can either break or make a film. The function of a director also can change drastically depending on the size of the film. If you're a solo filmmaker, you might be doing everything that the 100+ crew credits in the end of a Marvel movie might have done. That's a lot to put on your shoulders. The secret weapon that a director does that can set them apart from other directors or set them apart from any other person up for the job is knowing the intention of everything on screen. It's just like I mentioned before that they cast the creative vision, but understanding that if it's in front of camera, if it's on the page, if there is some sort of reason that it's there, whether it's the producing side or the story side or in front of camera, behind camera, knowing that there's a purpose for it will set you apart. If you can understand that by adding in an extra explosion may cost an added amount, but that added amount could potentially raise the value of the film to beyond what the investment was, that's something a director should know. Everything on screen is there for a reason. And if you forget that it's there, you're probably a lazy director or you haven't figured it out quite yet. I hope that helps you understand what a film director actually does. There are so many different aspects of the job, and we'll dive into more details in future videos. But while you're waiting, you can check out this playlist here that I've put together of other techniques and tools you can use to launch your career as a filmmaker. And I will see you in the next video.